I never expected my life to turn upside down at a stuffy charity gala, but I guess that's just how things happen sometimes. One minute you're eating rubbery chicken and avoiding boring small talk with Los Angeles elite, the next you're caught in the orbit of someone powerful, for better or worse. It was one of those obnoxious high society events my marketing job sometimes forced me to attend. You know the type. Way too much money and ego crammed under one roof, everything dripping with fake niceties. I felt so out of place in my bargain bin dress among the ball gowns and tuxedos, like a mouse that somehow wandered into the viper's nest. I was hovering by the open bar, trying my best to blend into the potted plants when it happened. Dodging a swinging ponytail, I stumbled right into a solid male form, sloshing red wine down the front of my dress. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," I sputtered, flushing beet red as I took in the imposing figure before me. Definitely not some nobody I could brush off. The man, tall, tan, and expensively tailored, just flashed a brilliant smile and brushed off my stammered apologies. "No worries at all, beautiful. Quite all right." His casual confidence made me even more flustered. I barely registered him taking my hand and introducing himself with an ostentatious kiss. "I'm Jake Wilkinson." My jaw must have dropped to the floor. Jake Wilkinson, one of the richest and most powerful tech entrepreneurs in LA, was standing right in front of me. I knew all about him. The robot companies, the social media apps, the insane luxury houses and cars. Basically everything my broke self could never even dream of affording. You," I squeaked out, feeling like even more of an idiot under his amused gaze. Jake chuckled, seemingly taking pity on my inarticulate fangirling. "Why don't you grab us a couple of fresh drinks and we can get to know each other better?" I must have nodded dumbly, because next thing I knew we were sitting in a quiet corner, Jake regaling me with stories about building his empire from the ground up. I hung eagerly on every word, forgetting my earlier mortification. By the end of the night, I felt like I'd truly seen behind the tech mogul's veil. Jake insisted on taking me to dinner soon to continue our scintillating conversation. Despite my reservations about his legendary wealth and reputation, I found myself saying yes. That's how it all started with Jake Wilkinson, one embarrassing blunder leading to an intoxicating encounter. In that moment, I never could have predicted the roller coaster I was about to board. If I had, I might have thought twice before taking that ride. After that enchanting night at the gala, I was walking on air. I couldn't believe someone as wealthy and powerful as Jake Wilkinson wanted to pursue me, just a regular marketing associate getting by on an average salary in Los Angeles. When he asked me out to a trendy new restaurant downtown, I eagerly accepted despite my nerves. The date was like something out of a movie fantasy. Jake showed up in a sleek sports car, opening the door for me with a boyish grin. As we dined on the fanciest cuisine, he hung on my every word while deftly steering the conversation. "So Layla, how did a brilliant young woman like yourself end up in the humdrum world of corporate marketing?" Jake asked with a twinkle in his eye. I shrugged self-consciously. "Well, it pays the bills, I guess. Not exactly my life's passion though." Jake sympathetically. "A wise man once said, if you don't build your dream, someone will hire you to build theirs. You're too special to just settle for grinding away at some thankless job." His words sent a shiver through me. Here was this insanely successful man, validating my own doubts about my dead-end career. Maybe Jake saw something in me that I didn't. "You know, if you're feeling unfulfilled, I could use someone as talented as you on my team," Jake said casually. "Help me run the Layla Wilkinson empire." I sputtered out a laugh at his joking arrogance. The Layla Wilkinson empire. I liked the sound of that. Jake flashed that panty-dropping smile again. "Well, I'm dead serious. Just think about it, Angel. By the end of that night, I was intoxicated by Jake's vision and confidence. A future by his side seemed exciting and limitless compared to my current boring existence. Over the next few weeks, our feelings intensified at a whirlwind pace despite my initial hesitations. Layla, this penthouse is lovely, but don't you think you deserve to wake up somewhere grander? Jake murmured one night as we cuddled on my second-hand couch. I looked around my cramped studio apartment, instantly feeling demotivated by the dingy walls and cheap furnishings. Somewhere grander, like living at one of Jake's mega mansions. I couldn't impose. I started, but he cut me off. Jake took my face in his hands tenderly. Don't be ridiculous. Move in with me this weekend, Angel. I insist. Rational thinking quickly flew out the window. How could I say no to trading up to the life of luxury and love Jake was offering? I was all in. Within a month of meeting Jake Wilkinson, I had quit my job at the marketing firm and relocated to his opulent Bel Air estate. My doubts and reservations were quieted by Jake's constant reassurance and doting affection. A beautiful woman like you shouldn't have to work another day in her life, Jake murmured possessively, pulling me close. Just let me take care of you from now on, Layla. In my lovesick state, his controlling behavior simply felt like infatuation. I had no idea that giving up my independence so easily would start me down such a dark path. If I could go back, maybe I would have made different choices. Those first few delirious months of dating Jake were like living in a fairy tale dream. I was drunk on his adoration, the nonstop pampering, and the lavish lifestyle he provided. My family and friends just chalked it up to me acting like a love-struck fool, but I really thought I had met my Prince Charming. Things slowly started shifting though after I moved into Jake's sprawling Bel Air mansion. At first, the little critiques were easy to brush off. Maybe my makeup was a bit heavy, maybe those jeans didn't flatter my figure like he preferred. I figured all couples got nitpicky about insignificant things sometimes. You'd look so gorgeous if you just put in a bit more effort, Angel, Jake would lament with a remorseful sigh, handing me an exorbitantly expensive designer dress. This color was made for your gorgeous skin tone. Like an idiot, I'd beam at the backhanded compliment and hurry to change per his suggestion, hoping to earn his approval again. It was stupid, but I was so desperate to keep Jake's affection and lavish privileges that I subconsciously started molding myself to his whims. The nagging concerns from my family and friends grew louder too. Layla, doesn't it bother you that Jake is so controlling over what you wear and how you look? My sister asked during one sisterly heart-to-heart. It's kinda weird. I vehemently brushed her off at the time. Don't be ridiculous. He's just a doting boyfriend who showers me with nice things. You're just jealous. God, I cringe looking back at how stupidly delusional I was. The first major red flag slapped me in the face during one of Jake's fancy schmancy work gatherings at the mansion. Hundreds of his snobby friends, investors, and business partners were milling around, quaffing overpriced liquor as I played the attentive hostess in a designer gown per Jake's instructions. Everything was going perfectly until I got a little too buzzed and managed to slop a glass of Merlot down the front of my pale dress. More embarrassed than I'd ever been in my life, I rushed out of the room to clean up, only to walk straight into Jake's seething rage. "You stupid, clumsy bitch," he roared, making me flinch like I'd been slapped. "That rug cost more than your entire net worth. Why did I ever expect more from someone as useless as you?" Harsh insults and put-downs were commonplace from Jake by that point, but there was something extra cold and cruel in his tone that night. The disgust written all over his face as he berated me was like a harsh slug of reality. I retreated with my tail between my legs, dismayed by the dark fury simmering behind Jake's typical arrogance. In that moment, a little voice whispered that maybe my loved ones had been right to worry all along, but like an idiot, I ignored it and trudged on. Looking back, that evening marked the tipping point from an over-the-top romance into something much more twisted and toxic. If only I'd had the strength and self-worth to get out then before being dragged down into the deepest, darkest pits of Jake's psyche. After the humiliating wine incident at Jake's party, I wish I could say I gathered what little self-respect I had left and got the hell out of there. But sadly, I was in too deep, both financially and emotionally dependent on the gilded cage Jake had constructed around me. The verbal abuse and degrading behavior only intensified over the following months. I walked on eggshells constantly, never knowing what would set off one of Jake's volcanic temper tantrums. Maybe I overcooked the sea bass. Maybe I forgot to schedule his massage. Maybe I simply looked at him the wrong way. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't predict or prevent the storms. Do you have any idea how much I sacrificed to give you this amazing life? Jake would rage, his handsome face contorted in disgust. The least you could do is not be as graceful at everything. His words chipped away at me, harsh and incessant, until I was convinced I deserved the cruel treatment. This self-made billionaire had plucked me out of mediocrity and failure, and I continually disappointed him. At least, that's what the twisted tapes in my mind repeated ad nauseum. I became distant from my friends and family, who had tried so hard to open my eyes earlier. How could I admit to them that they'd been right all along about Jake's true nature? The shame and denial knotted my tongue. The worst, most harrowing night came after one of Jake's formal dinners. I'd been on my best behavior all evening as the attentive, adoring girlfriend, until Jake got it in his head that I'd been flirting with one of his colleagues. It was a ludicrous accusation. I hadn't so much as glanced at the man. But in Jake's paranoid, drunken state, that didn't matter. "You ungrateful whore," he roared, shoving me up against the bedroom wall after the guests had gone. "You think you can make a fool of me in my own home?" I'll spare the gruesome details, but that night Jake took his abuse to a terrifying new level. I'll just say that by the time he was finally passed out in a rage-soaked stupor, I was barely conscious, bruised, bloodied, with broken bones and a severe concussion. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in a hospital bed, hooked up to IVs and monitors with my loved ones' ashen faces gathered around me. That's when the full reality hit, like a cold slap of truth. Jake could have killed me, and I had been too manipulated and downtrodden to walk away before this horrific breaking point. My family was in tears, going between comforting me and raging at how I had hidden Jake's depravity from them for so long. Their reactions cemented my shame, but also lit an unexpected spark inside me. Enough was enough. I couldn't let Jake, or my own ingrained feelings of unworthiness, destroy me any longer. Something had to change before his violence went even further, and I ended up dead. "Get me help," I rasped through bloodied lips, grasping my mother's hand. "I'm finally ready to get out." Jake had stolen so much of my identity, my independence, my spirit over the past year, but in that hospital bed, battered and broken, I vowed to claw it all back. No matter how long or arduous the journey ahead, I was going to fight for myself like my life quite literally depended on it. My hospital stay and recovery was a hazy blur of pain meds, doctor visits, and confronting the brutal reality that had become my life with Jake. I was simultaneously numb yet overwhelmed, numb to the physical aches from my injuries, but emotionally drained by the avalanche of trauma crashing over me. Through it all, my family and longtime friends rallied around me in a way I didn't deserve after shutting them out for so long. Instead of harsh judgment, though, They showered me with unconditional love and reassurance that I hadn't lost their support. "Oh, Emmy," my mom kept repeating through tears, clutching me gingerly, "why didn't you tell us how bad things were? We could have helped you so much sooner." I just shook my head mutely, unable to articulate the toxic shame cycle I'd been trapped in. Looking back, Jake's psychological manipulation had been just as insidious as his physical violence. With my loved one's help and encouragement, I finally opened up to a counselor at a local domestic violence organization. Deborah was patient, kind, and shocked by the depths of depravity I'd survived. "Layla, you are incredibly brave for breaking free from such a dangerous situation," she said firmly, giving my hand a reassuring squeeze. "And you're far from alone. Shelters like ours exist to support women just like you in safely exiting these relationships." Deborah and I worked closely over the next few weeks, formulating a meticulous escape plan from Jake's gilded prison. Every possible angle had to be considered to ensure my safety. Wealthy, influential men like him didn't typically go down without an epic fight. The opportunity finally came when Jake arrogantly assumed I'd be too broken to ever leave. He went on some long business trip overseas, certain I'd stay obediently imprisoned in his cavernous mansion. That's when I sprang into action. I called in a moving truck with strong handlers, packed up every last remnant of my previous life, and got the hell out of that dark, toxic house forever. It felt triumphant, like regaining the freedom Jake had slowly, meticulously stolen. As a final slap, I retained a powerful attorney and filed for an emergency restraining order as well as pressing charges against Jake for assault, battery, and a million other crimes. There was no way he could sweep this under the rug or make it go away, with his wealth this time. You ungrateful shrew. After everything I did for you," Jake raged over the phone when served the order, his signature fury exploding. "You're going to regret this, Layla. I'll bury you." I simply chuckled darkly and hung up the call. For the first time, his threats and blowhard posturing held zero power over me. I was firmly on my path and had already emotionally moved on. For Jake, that marked the beginning of the end of his narcissistic empire. As I bravely came forward with my story, other victims found courage to do the same. His wife of over a decade filed for divorce. Exposes hit the media. Business partners and investors dropped him like a red-hot rock. Just like that, the high and mighty Jake Wilkinson fell from grace. Meanwhile, while Jake was crumbling, my own journey of recovery and reclamation soared to new heights. With a strong support system and intensive therapy, I slowly regained the self-worth and confidence he'd stripped away piece by piece. I felt reborn, ready to use my experiences to forge new paths that would ensure no woman ever felt as helpless or trapped as I had been. These days, I can finally look back at my turbulent past and fragile recovery with a true sense of strength. What Jake put me through was unimaginable, and at times I didn't know if I would survive intact. But I persevered and reclaimed my voice, my spirit, my life. The initial months after leaving Jake were some of the toughest. Sure, I was free from his toxic grip, but putting my existence back together after having it so systematically dismantled was arduous. I had to start over from scratch, find a job, get my own place, essentially relearn how to be independent. It was humbling and oftentimes demoralizing relying on my family for basic needs as a fully grown woman, but their unconditional support and Deborah's counseling gave me the foundation to gradually rebuild my self-esteem. I was no longer the diminished, broken shadow of a person Jake had traveled to create. My biggest regret is how much time I missed with loved ones who only wanted to protect me. Those were years I could never get back. But slowly, forgiveness and repairing those bonds became another source of strength. You have to understand. We don't blame you, my brother said during one heart-to-heart. That monster was a mastermind player. The important thing is you got out before it was too late. I nodded, still getting choked up. I know, I'm just so sorry I pushed you all away when you tried to help. I'll regret that forever. He smiled sadly. No regrets. Just being here now is enough. And he was right. Living in the present, no longer trapped by guilt or fear, was true freedom. I could finally breathe again. Once I felt stable enough, I knew I had to pay forward the support I received by helping other women in crisis. That's how I found my calling, volunteering at a domestic violence nonprofit, using my experiences to facilitate growth and offer hope. Nothing makes the pain feel more worthwhile than when a client tells me I've given her the courage to leave her abuser or start therapy. Regaining my own sense of self-worth meant everything, and watching other survivors do the same is indescribably powerful. Of course, not every story has a fairy tale ending. Some women, despite their bravery, tragically lose their lives to psychopathic partners before getting the chance to escape. Their memories and suffering is what drives me every single day. To speak out, raise awareness, and try to prevent future innocent deaths. As for Jake, I try not to focus too much vengeful energy on him anymore. His once bright star has been utterly extinguished by his own toxic arrogance and depravity. He's facing mountain of criminal charges, his business assets were seized, and most important of all, he's been exposed as the narcissistic abuser he truly is. Knowing he can no longer hurt myself or anyone else is enough. I've evolved and grown too much to stay trapped in his web of destruction. My journey isn't over by any means. Recovery from this level of trauma is an ongoing process. But I'm finally able to look toward the future with a renewed sense of hope and possibility. If I can emerge from such unspeakable darkness into the light, maybe my story can inspire others feeling hopelessly stuck. There is always light at the end of the tunnel, no matter how endless it can seem at times. But you have to keep fighting through the shadows to reach it. I'm living proof that the path exists, no matter how arduous. You just have to summon the courage to take those first steps. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to our channel, give us a like, share our story. I'll see you soon with another captivating story.